The South China Sea stretched endlessly beyond the iron-barred window, its turquoise waters marking the concrete walls that held U.S. Condau Prison, Vietnam's most isolated penitentiary, sat on an archipelago so remote that the mainland felt like a distant memory. It had been 83 years now. He had learned that survival wasn't just about enduring, it was about understanding the peculiar ecosystem of privileges that separated the living from the merely existing. My name is Marcos Chen, and before I became prisoner, 4782, I was a documentary filmmaker who got too close to a story I should have left alone. Smuggling accusations, they said. Espionage, they whispered. The truth was somewhere in between. But truth had little currency in a place like this. The morning sun cast long shadows across the yard as I sat with my back against the wall, watching the daily choreography of prison life unfold. Old Nguyen shuffled past, his weekly letter clutched in his weathered hands like a religious artifact. There was the first privilege, the one that kept most men sane: letters from home. Once a week, if you earned it, if you kept your head down and your mouth shut, they did let you receive mail. Not send, that was a different privilege entirely, but receive. The censors would read every word first, black out anything they deemed inappropriate, but what remained was oxygen to drowning men. It had seen hardened criminals weep over a single paragraph from a child they hadn't seen in years. Nguyen had been 80 for 15 years, semi-financial crime that had bankrupted dozens of families. He did tell anyone who did listen that his daughter's weekly letters were the only reason he hadn't walked into the sea. The guards knew it too. They did dangle mail delivery like a carrot, withholding it when you stepped out of line, delivering it with a smile when you'd been compliant. He hadn't received a letter in 6 months. My sister had stopped writing after he'd been caught trading cigarettes with another prisoner. 6 months might as well have been 6 years. Eddie Chen. The voice cut through the morning air like a blade. Guard Captain Min stood at the entrance till the yard, his uniform crisp despite the humid heat. Warden wants to see you. The other prisoners looked away. Being summoned to the warden's office could mean anything: punishment, news, transfer, or something worse. I stood slowly, my legs stiff from the concrete floor, and followed Min through the labyrinth of corridors that snaked through the prison's interior. Warden Tran's office was an anomaly. This place air-conditioned, decorated with photographs of his family, a window that actually opened to let in the sea breeze. He sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers stippled, studying me with eyes that had seen everything and been surprised by nothing. Sit, he said in English. He always spoke English with me, practicing, he did once admitted. You've been 83 years now, Mr. Chen. How do you find our hospitality? He learned not to rise till his dark humor. He learned much about patience, so, he smiled, thin and humorless. Patience, yes, a valuable lesson. He opened a folder on his desk. Your sister has been petitioning for your transfer. Did you know this? Letters till the embassy, till human rights organizations, till anyone who will listen. Very persistent. My heart hammered against my ribs. I said nothing. You've been reviewing your record. 3 years of mostly good behavior, aside from that cigarette incident. You work at the library. He glanced at the file. You teach English to other prisoners. You stay out of the political discussions that others seem unable to resist. He looked up. You've on certain considerations. It is the negotiation, the dace. Everything in Condau was a transaction. What I want to discuss with you, Mr. Chen, is the second privilege. He leaned back in his chair. Educational opportunities. We have a new program being implemented, partnership with a university on the mainland. Prisoners with good behavior can take correspondence courses, work toward degrees. Each keeps minds occupied, reduces tensions, improves rehabilitation outcomes. He said the last part as if reading from a brochure. Yemi, listening, said carefully. The program needs coordinators. Prisoners who can help others with coursework, who can maintain order in study groups, who understand the value of this opportunity. His eyes locked onto mine. The coordinators get additional privileges: Modi library team, access to computers for coursework, private study areas, and their families are notified of their participation there. Progress toward rehabilitation. Translation: play along, help us look good for whatever inspection or international audit was coming, and my sister would know I was alive, improving my situation. I would be honored to participate, I said, keeping my voice neutral. He nodded, satisfied. Good. UADL start next week. Captain Min will provide details. He waved his hand in dismissal, but as I reached the door, he spoke again. Chen, don't they disappoint me. This program matters to people above my pay grade. If it fails, everyone associated with it suffers. Understood? Yes. So, back in the yard, the morning had given way to the brutal midday heat. I found Miles while spotting sat, processing what had just happened. Educational opportunities. It sounded almost civilized, almost like this was a real rehabilitation center and not a warehouse for forgotten men. You look like you've seen a ghost. The voice belonged to Tommy Sullivan, an Australian who had caught trafficking drugs through Ho Chi Minh City. He'd been 85 years. He had the hollow look of someone who'd stopped counting days. What did the warden want? Educational program, I said. Wants me to help coordinate it. Tommy let out a low whistle. Lucky bastard. That means you'll get computer access. I nodded. Computer access, the third privilege, and perhaps the most coveted after letters from home. A world where we were cut off from everything, where news filtered through gods and rumors, where the internet was a mythical place that might as well have been on another planet. Getting sanctioned access to a computer was like being handed the keys to paradise. Of course, the computers would be monitored, restricted, LGPD from the actual internet. With the access only approved educational materials, preloaded courses, sanitized content. But still it was a window, however small, till the world we'd lost. How do you manage it? Tommy asked. My sister has been making noise. I think they want to show progress, make me a success story. He snorted. Success story. Right. Well, don't they fuck it up. Some of us could actually use the education courses. I never finished high school, you know. Dropped out at 16 to chase easy money. He looked out at the sea. Look where that got me. The afternoon dragged on, as afternoons always did. At 3 policial militar, the guards called for recreational time de fourth privilege, in one that was constantly under threat of revocation. For 2 hours, 4 times a week, we were allowed into the larger yard with access to a basketball court. Some weights, in open space to walk, talk, or simply exist outside the cramped cells. Not everyone got recreational time. It had to be on through good behavior, through labor, through the complex system of social credit that governed prison life. Men who caused trouble, who fought, who spoke out against the guards or the administration, found themselves confined to their cells for weeks at a time, their muscles atrophying, their minds turning inward in dark. They learned to cherish these hours. I walked the perimeter of the yard, feeling the sun on my face, breathing air that didn't taste like concrete in despair. Other prisoners played basketball with a ball that had lost half its air. Their shouts and laughter almost normal, almost human. Marcus. Young Duck waved me over to where he sat with a small group under the shade of the only tree in the yard. Come, sit. He discussing philosophy. This was Duck's thing. He did been a university student before his arrest for political activism. He couldn't turn off his intellectual nature even it. He gathered small groups to discuss ideas, books, theories. The guards tolerated each as long as each stayed away from politics. What is today's topic? I asked, settling onto the ground. The nature of freedom, said King, an older man who had been a poet before prison. Whether it can exist in the mind even when the body is constrained. Dangerous topic, I observed. Duck smiled. All meaningful topics are dangerous. But we frame each philosophically, academically. We discuss Sartre, Camus, Buddhist philosophy. Nothing explicitly political. We spent the next hour discussion, and I felt my mind stretching flexiways each had in 10 months. This was what education could do, what the Warden S program promised, a way to remain human, to grow even in captivity. As the recreational period ended and we filed back toward the cell blocks, I noticed Captain Min watching our group with interest. He caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. I realized then that this was part of each. They wanted to see who the intellectuals were, who the natural leaders were, who could be leveraged for their educational program. That evening, in my cell, I lay on my thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. My cellmate, a quiet Vietnamese man named Lin who had been convicted of theft, was already asleep, his breathing steady and deep. I envied his ability to escape into unconsciousness. I thought about the fifth privilege, the one talked about openly but everyone understood. Medical care, real medical care, not just bandages and aspirin. A place where disease spread through the population like a wildfire, where the heady humidity created perfect conditions for infection, where fights could leave men seriously injured, access to the prison actual medical facility with trained doctors, real medicine, proper treatment was the difference between life and death. They seen men die from infections that could have been treated with antibiotics. They watched someone nearly lose a leg because a minor cat became infected. He was ignored for too long. The prison had a medical wing, had doctors who came from the mainland, had supplies and equipment. But access was rationed, distributed according to the same complex calculus that governed everything else. Good behavior earned you treatment when you needed it. Bad behavior meant suffering, sometimes dying, from treatable conditions. It was the darkest aspect of the privilege system, the one that revealed the true nature of power in this place. The next morning, I reported to the library for my new duties. The prison library was a small room filled with Vietnamese books, a few English titles, and a couple of ancient computers that looked like they'd been rescued from a 1990s office. Captain Min was there, along with a woman Igini to recognize mid-40s, professional-looking, clearly not a prisoner. Chen, this is Dr. Pham from Hanoi National University. She'll be overseeing the educational program. Min gestured between U.S. Dr. Pham, Marcus Chen, one of your coordinators. She extended her hand. I shook each, momentarily disoriented by the normal gesture. Mr. Chen, Captain Min speaks highly of your English skills and your work with other prisoners. Thank you, I said carefully. She spent the next hour explaining the program. Prisoners could enroll in various courses: basic literacy, mathematics, English, even some vocational training. Those who completed courses would receive certificates, which could theoretically help with parole considerations or post-release employment. As coordinators, we would help manage study groups, tutor struggling students, and maintain the computer laboratory. The goal, Dr. Pham said, who is honest, is genuine rehabilitation. Yes, this serves the prison image, serves bureaucratic requirements. But it also serves you, the prisoners. Education is freedom, even it. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. Over the following weeks, the program took shape. 30 prisoners were selected to participate in the first cohort, chosen for good behavior and apparent aptitude. We coordinators there were for U.S. set-up schedules, organized materials, learned the computer systems. The computers, as expected, were locked out tight. We could access only the educational software, preloaded documents, e a carefully curated database of reference materials. No internet, no email, no connection to the outside world. But still, sitting in front of a screen, typing on a keyboard, felt like touching civilization again. Tommy Sullivan was in the first cohort, enrolled in a basic mathematics course. Never thought he'd be doing algebra at 42, he muttered, staring at his workbook. But hell, what else have I got to do? I helped him through quadratic equations, watched him struggle and eventually grasped concepts he'd never learned as a teenager. There was something profound about Ichieri, this place of punishment and suffering. Minds were growing, expanding, reaching towards something better. Young Duck enrolled in advanced English and philosophy courses, his intellect finally finding proper channels. Old Nguyen, who received his weekly letter from his daughter announcing her engagement, signed up for literature classes, determined to be able to discuss books with his future grandchildren. 3 months into the program, Warden Tran summoned me again. The program is performing well, he said without preamble, better than expected. The university is pleased, the provincial authorities are pleased. You've done good work, Chen. Thank you, sir. He studied me for a long moment. Your sister's petitions have found sympathetic ears. There is talk of a prisoner exchange program, Americans and others held in Vietnam for Vietnamese nationals held abroad. Your name has been mentioned. My breath caught. So, Yemi Canadian with American citizenship through your father, yes. Each is in your fili. He leaned forward. These things move slowly, if they move at all. But your participation in this program, your positive record, they help. They make you someone worth negotiating over rather than just another smuggler we can forget about. Hope you is dangerous in prison. It could sustain you or destroy you. I tried to keep my voice level. What do you need from me? Continue what you he doing. We he expanding the program 50 more prisoners next quarter, eventually perhaps 100. We need it to succeed. When the inspectors come, when the journalists visit, you speak about your experience. Honestly, he added, seeing my expression, within reason. Tell them the program works, that education is possible, that rehabilitation is our goal. Make them believe it. And if I do this, then when the team comes for negotiations, for exchanges, for clemency considerations, your name rises to the top of the list. He opened a drawer and pulled out your letter. This arrived 3 days ago. Yemi returning your mail privileges. I took the envelope with shaking hands. My sister's handwriting on the front, her familiar script. I thought they would tear it open immediately. Don't disappoint me, Chen, and don't disappoint yourself. That night, I read my sister's letter by the dim light of the cell. She wrote about her life in Vancouver, about her work, about our mother's health. She wrote about her efforts to secure my release, the lawyers she consulted, the officials she contacted, and she wrote about her hope that I was surviving, improving, staying strong. I don't know if you ever read this, she wrote. They don't tell me if my letters reach you, but I keep writing because I need to believe you he is still the brother I knew, that you haven't been broken by that place. Stay human, Marcos. Whatever it takes, stay human. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it under my thin pillow. Lynn was awake, watching me in the darkness. Good news? He asked quietly. Maybe, I said. Maybe. The educational program continued to expand. We moved from the cramped library to a larger classroom space. More computers arrived, more books, more materials. Dr. Pham visited weekly, bringing new courses, checking on progress, conducting interviews with prisoners about their experiences. I watched men transform. Tommy completed basic math and moved on to accounting courses, dreams of legitimate work when if he was released. Duck became a peer teacher, helping others with English and essay writing. Even the hardest cases, men who debated for decades, found something in the courses, a challenge, a purpose, a way to mark time that was to just survival. But the privilege system remained. One day a prisoner named Hein was removed from the program. He'd gotten into a fight in the yard, broken another man's jaw. His computer access was revoked, his coursework confiscated, his name struck from the program roster. That's 3 years of work, Duck said quietly as we watched guards escort Hein back to his cell. 3 years of learning, gone. He broke the rules, I said. The other man started it. You know that. I did know that. But the other man had connections, family with money, influence. Hein had nothing in one. Justice was relative in Condal as it was everywhere. The incident reminded me of the fragility of privileges. They could be granted and revoked on whim, on circumstance, on the shifting politics of prison life. The 5 privileges letters, education, computers, recreation, medical care, they were into rights. They were tools of control, carrots dangled to ensure compliance. And yet, they were also real opportunities. The education I was helping provide was genuine. The letters that men received from families truly did sustain them. The medical care, when granted, truly did save lives. The system was exploitative and manipulative, but within it, real human flourishing was possible. 6 months after I started coordinating the educational program, the inspectors came. A delegation from Hanoi, some officials from international goals, a journalist from a European newspaper. They toured the facility, met with the warden, observed classes. They interviewed me, as Tran had predicted they would. Tell us about your experience with the educational program, the journalist asked, her recorder running. I thought about lying, about painting the rosy picture Tran wanted. I thought about telling the full truth, about exposing the manipulation, the control, the way privileges were wielded as weapons. In the end, I told the truth. The program has given me purpose, I said. A place where it is easy to lose yourself, where every day can blend into the next endless gray sameness, having something to work toward, something to teach, something to learn. It is life-saving. Is it perfect? No. Is it complicated by the realities of prison life? Yes. But it is real, and it matters, and it is made me, and others better than we would have been without it. The journalist nodded, making notes. Your treatment generally? Me in prison, I said carefully. It's not meant to be pleasant, but me treated fairly when I followed the rules. The privileges vi on meio, education access, recreation he things I have to maintain through good behavior. It's a system with clear expectations e clear consequences. After they left, Captain Min found me in the library. That was good, he said, honest but positive. The warden will be pleased. Will it help? I asked. With the prisoner exchange talks? He shrugged. Who can say? These things are political. But each dois ni terror teu have friends. Another year passed. The seasons changed in subtle ways. The monsoons came and went. The heat intensified and eased. The sea shifted from calm to violent and back again. The educational program became established, no longer a new initiative but an accepted part of prison life. We had over 100 prisoners enrolled, 3 full-time coordinators, regular visits from university staff. I received letters from my sister monthly now, each one a treasure. She told me the negotiations were progressing, slowly but progressing. My name was on our list. That's all she knew. Old Nguyen finished a literature course. He received a certificate, which he sent to his daughter. She wrote back that she deframed that each honey her home, that her fiancé was impressed that her father was pursuing education even in his circumstances. Tommy Sullivan completed enough courses to claim the equivalent of a high school diploma. Took me 25 years longer than each should have, he said, holding his certificates, but I did it. If I ever get out of it, maybe I can actually do something legitimate. Young Duck was teaching 3 classes now, his obvious intellect recognized even by the guards. There was talk of him potentially being transferred to a minimum security facility, given his good behavior and contributions to the prison. And then, one morning, Warden Tran called me to his office one final time. Sit, Chen. His voice was different, softer, almost respectful. I sat, my heart pounding. The negotiations have concluded. There will be a prisoner exchange, 5 Vietnamese nationals for 5 foreign prisoners. You he one of the 5. He slid a paper across the desk. You'll be transferred to Hanoi next week, processed there, and then flown to Canada. It's over. I stared at the paper, unable to process the words. I don't understand. Why me? Why now? Because you were useful, because your case got attention, because the program you helped build looks good reports and inspections. He smiled thinly. Because sometimes, Mr. Chen, the system works for someone. I spent my final week at Condal saying goodbye to men who would never leave, who were giant, whose names would never make it onto any exchange list. I gave my library duties to another coordinator, packed a few possessions it accumulated, read my sister's letters one more time. The night before my transfer, Duck found me in the yard doing recreation chimney. So you he really leaving? He said. Yes. Will you write about this place? About US? I'd been a filmmaker, a documentarian. It's what had gotten me into this mess. But maybe, eventually, it could also be how I made sense of it. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, if I can find the right words. Tell them we he not just prisoners, he said quietly. Tell them we he men who made mistakes, who are trying to be better, who are more than the worst thing we ever did. Tell them about the 5 privileges, about how they keep US human even as they control US. Tell them the truth, all the complicated, contradictory truth. I will, I promised. The next morning, they transferred me to Hanoi. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Vancouver. My sister met me at the airport, and we held each other and cried. Freedom was stranger than I'd imagined. The world had continued without me, had changed in ways he couldn't have predicted. But it changed too. Shaped by 3 years and 8 months in Vietnam's most isolated prison. I thought often about the 5 privileges, about the men still owning and losing them every day, about Tommy studying accounting in the computer laboratory, about Duck teaching philosophy to men who'd never finished high school, about Old Nguyen reading his weekly letters from his daughter, about the complex system that had controlled every aspect of my life but had also, in its own twisted way, kept me sane, kept me growing, kept me human. I started writing the story 6 months after my release. Not as an expose, not as an indictment, but as a testament to the strange truth of how human beings survive and even flourish in the most unlikely circumstances. How even in captivity, the mind seeks freedom. How even in punishment, we reach for redemption. The 5 privileges of Condal prison: letters from home, educational opportunities, computer access, recreational time, e medical care were tools of control, but they were also, paradoxically, instruments of salvation. They were the thin threads that connected us to our humanity, to our better selves, to the possibility of a future beyond those concrete walls. In the end, for one lucky prisoner, they were the path home.